Please welcome the main dude, Roger Kilmer.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had a great time at the reception last night, meeting new people and renewing old friendships. You may have thought the reception was just an opportunity to socialize and have some fun, but it really is part of what we hope to achieve here at the conference, for you to make new connections, share lessons learned, and go away with new ideas for helping your manufacturers. Before we get started today, I want to pass some news on about one of our friends and colleagues. John Lloyd's mother passed on Friday, and so he will not be here at the conference this year. John is the president and CEO of Mantech, the MEP Center located in York, Pennsylvania, and I want to express my sincere regrets to John and his family for his loss. Let me start by welcoming everyone to Florida. This is a great venue for knowledge exchange, and to that end, I always like to find out how many of you are first-timers here at the conference. So if you would, please show me your hands. As always, it's a good sampling of folks. Let me give you a heads up. You're about to embark on an intensive and comprehensive learning experience about manufacturing extension. This year's national conference theme is a new story for manufacturing. We've structured sessions in 3 tracks: people, planet, and profit. And each of these tracks represents a critical pillar or bottom line concept for manufacturers that want to sustain profitability. The conference sessions demonstrate the tools and the how-to process that we hope you'll take back to your center. I encourage you to ask questions. Introduce yourselves to the people leading the sessions so that you can return to your organizations with more great ideas and solutions. Since restarting the conference in 2006, the makeup of the audience has significantly changed. I'd like to take a moment to highlight the groups that are in the room today. At this year's conference, we have over 600, and I think we're approaching 700, which would be a record for us, which is absolutely fantastic, of folks representing not only the centers, but many of the partner organizations, federal agencies, and the Nist MEP Advisory Board. And this year, we're especially thrilled to have so many U.S. manufacturers in the audience. During the next 3 days, make sure to stop by in the Net Lounge and Exhibit Hall that are located next door. There you can visit our many partners and other supporting organizations. You can visit with representatives from the Environmental Protection Agency, a great partner with MEP on the Green Suppliers Network, and more recently on the Economy, Energy, and the Environment, or E3 program. In addition, we're pleased to have the Department of Energy here as well, represented by the Industrial Technologies Program and the Industrial Assessment Centers. For my home organization, Nist, we welcome this year the Baldrige National Quality Program, the Standard Services Division, and the Technology Innovation Program. Over the last few years, we've built a strong relationship with the Society of Manufacturing Engineers, and we're glad that Executive Director and General Manager Mark Tomlinson could be here with us. I think Mark actually caught a flight back this morning, but you folks from SME, if you could tell Mark that we really do appreciate all of his support. In addition to our federal partners, you'll find a total of 25 exhibits next door, which is the first time we've done that, and I think you'll enjoy it, showcasing various resources, tools, and technologies that each have to offer. Please join me in thanking our partners and exhibitors for their continued support. There's another organization I'd like to recognize that has been a tremendous supporter of this year's conference. They are a sister organization, part of the International Trade Administration of the U.S. Department of Commerce, and that's the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service. They've partnered with MEP to bring a new event to our conference, the Euro Trade Forum. As you can see by the slide on the screen, a number of organizations have helped make this event possible. The Euro Trade Forum will help U.S. manufacturers looking to export to Europe for the first time or to increase their market share. During Monday and Tuesday of our conference, 8 sessions will take place focused on what companies need to know when exporting, specifically to Europe. In addition to the content that the U.S. and Foreign Commercial Service has developed, each Eurotrade participant has an opportunity to schedule one-on-one meetings with the 28 senior commercial officers that are here this week with us from Europe. This new component has brought a wealth of additional resources to our conference attendees, and it has allowed us to expand the number of manufacturers that are here with us this year at the conference. Again, I want to thank all of you for the support of MEP and our nation's manufacturers. Again, one more time, if we could applaud them. I'm also pleased and honored that we have the U.S. Department of Commerce Secretary Gary Locke and Dr. Patrick Gallagher, the Director of Nist, here with us today. Their presence should say a lot regarding the importance of manufacturing and how it's viewed in Washington. Secretary Locke will join us after lunch, and Dr. Gallagher will be sharing his thoughts right after me this morning. I personally want to thank them both for joining us today, and to thank you, Pat, for your support of the MEP program. Finally, while you know the centers and you individually are important to me and to MEP, I need to recognize the real reason that I'm here and why I think all of you are here today, and that's our manufacturers, those that have joined us this week, as well as those from across the country. Without manufacturing, our economy would not be the same, and it's because of you that Nist MEP developed this system of partners to help you face your daily challenges and prepare for future opportunities. At last year's conference, we took some time to reflect on how far the manufacturing sector had come in confronting and conquering significant challenges. We celebrated the success that we had in helping manufacturers navigate the new economic realities driven by technology and globalization. We talked about our plans for the future, focused on fostering growth through new sales, new markets, and new opportunities. Today, I stand before you acknowledging that there are many challenges, both for you and your manufacturing clients, but I also believe there are new opportunities for both. An indication of this is the growing recognition of the importance of manufacturing to the U.S. economy. There have been a series of reports from all levels of the federal government highlighting the role manufacturing can and will continue to play in the U.S. These reports frame the thinking of the administration, of Nist, and of MEP with respect to the future of U.S. manufacturing. Another indicator of support was the Vice President highlighting the National Innovation Marketplace as a tool for supply chain integration and efficiency. Likewise, our partnership with the U.S. Export Assistance Centers on the Export Tech Program has been recognized and supported in various congressional committee activities. The MEP budget for this year has grown by nearly $15 million, a nice trend from years past, with an administration plan to double the budget within the next several years. While there are many challenges facing us as a country, given the increased recognition of the importance of manufacturing, it is clear that MEP is valued and that if we continue to perform at our typical high levels, we'll continue to see support in the upcoming years. The challenges that we face are significant, but not insurmountable. Since I saw you last, we have seen significant job loss in the manufacturing sector, and growth has slowed to a near standstill. However, recently, we have begun to see a glimmer of light at the end of the tunnel. The Federal Reserve banks in Philadelphia, New York, and generally across the nation have indicated an increase in output and production in manufacturing in the first quarter of 2010, a very positive sign. However, even with these encouraging signs, the economic woes we've been experiencing have put many companies into a reactive and survival mode. Smaller firms are under tremendous pressure, and global competition remains relentless. So we find ourselves at yet another crossroads, not unlike the one U.S. manufacturers faced some 30 years ago, but now new players, China and India, for example, in different themes, innovation and the green economy, are now part of the landscape. We know that productivity improvements are not sufficient to ensure business success. Cost reduction alone will not ensure profitability. Yes, our manufacturers need cost reduction strategies, but they need to be coupled with new ideas and new approaches if they are to capitalize on these opportunities. That's especially true in today's economy. There's little room for failure. MEP must continue our efforts to guide manufacturers toward innovation and profitable business growth. To achieve this goal, MEP must demonstrate proactive leadership. When others are cautious and the future seems uncertain, the MEP program must lead the way to write the new story for U.S. manufacturing. And as we write this new story, let's make sure we consider the past and the lessons previously learned. Join me as I step back 30 years. No, not that 30 years. We all know examples where history repeats itself, and in the case of U.S. manufacturing, well, let's take a look at this video.
We now have more service than manufacturing, and that helps depress our productivity. Manufacturing, making things, is a smaller percentage of our national economy than of any other industrial country, and that makes productivity improvement even more difficult.
Japan's industries registered an increase of 8% in 1978 and 11.4% in 1979. In the meantime, U.S. productivity growth rate hovered around 0.
Now, with our productivity in decline, more American companies are sending officials to Japan to see for themselves.
We've lived on the short-term, fairly immediate gratification of getting the consumption goods we wanted or getting the nice high return in capital profits rather than thinking about long-term investment.
If Americans saw what we have seen these past 2 weeks, they would be considerably less comfortable.
If we intend to compete internationally, unless we can change some attitudes and ideas fairly quickly, well, time's not on our side.
Many of these programs on statistics have died in American companies because they didn't get the top management support.
The majority of American businessmen have tended to be reactive in the 1970s rather than progressive in showing the kind of initiative we need in order to deal with these problems.
I think that people here expect miracles.
This video is taken from a 1980 NBC special titled, "If Japan Can, Why Can't We?" When I first watched this several months ago, I was struck by the similarities to the challenges the U.S. is facing today. 30 years ago, business leaders and management experts commented on the reactive mindset of many U.S. manufacturers, and when it came to adopting the concepts of quality management and continuous improvement. Why should we change? Who needs quality charts and lean? It's not us, it's the customer. Buying products from Japan, they should be buying American. Today you hear the same phrases, only this time the key word is innovation, and the primary threats are China and India, with others quickly catching up. Substitute innovation for productivity, and the opinions shared in the video ring true today. The NBC video was credited with promoting the quality revolution in the U.S. and introduced the methods of Dr. W. Edwards Deming to American manufacturers. Some manufacturers heard the warning and changed their ways. Others needed help to implement improvements, relying on programs like MEP to help guide the way. We've made an impact teaching our clients to use the tools of quality and lean, but MEP and U.S. manufacturers still have more work to do to overcome the current challenges. Now we must follow the examples of Dr. Deming and develop a system to support innovation, integrated with continuous improvement, but that leverages all of the resources of the United States to provide manufacturers with the tools and information to prepare for them to compete globally. We see examples of this every day within our manufacturing clients. In our hearts, we know that a turnaround for U.S. manufacturing is possible. In fact, the strategies we're talking about now were also true 30 years ago. Here's an example from 1980.
Now, the American steel industry has been losing business to the Japanese, who could produce a ton of steel with fewer men for less money. Now, some of that business is starting to come back, attracted by American mills that are small, modern, and beat even the Japanese at producing more for less.
We make steel at a lower cost than any steel company in the world, including the Japanese.
The plant at Norfolk, Nebraska is one of 10 owned by Nucor, a profitable non-union steel company.
We build plants very economically, and secondly, we run them very, very efficiently. The primary thanks to that goes to the employees themselves and the incentive production systems.
Nucor also invests heavily in modern technology, plowing back part of the profits to buy new equipment and experiment with new methods and machine improvements. Modern equipment, production bonuses, job security, and everyone makes a profit, including the United States.
For the last 4 years, our price, FOB, which is leaving this plant, has been equal or less than the Japanese price of steel landed dockside in the United States. Actually, most of our market has come from taking that market that used to belong to foreign steel producers.
Speaking of the Japanese, have they ever toured any of your facilities?
Yes, they've been in this plant.
Did they like it?
Yes, they said it was one of the most productive plants they had ever seen.
Did you hear a familiar theme? Technology, an empowered workforce, keys to success even in 1980. 30 years ago, the rallying cry called for leadership to focus on productivity improvements, which I'm happy to say we've achieved. The news story demands leadership yet again, not just saying the words, but developing a systematic approach to U.S. manufacturers to build upon their strengths, to develop an infrastructure with new approaches, tools, and services to support innovation. And the MEP program's role is not dissimilar to what we played in bringing the principles of lean manufacturing to smaller firms. We need to understand the components of innovation and pull the pieces together for U.S. manufacturers in a way that they can understand and can readily adopt. U.S. manufacturers and MEP have the opportunity to respond to the challenge before us and chart our own future, to write our own story. The good news is we recognize this and started down the right path over 4 years ago, developing service in the areas of technology acceleration, supplier development, workforce, environmental and business sustainability, and integrating them with our continuous improvement approaches. Everything we do supports the overarching goal of helping manufacturers achieve profitable growth beyond their current expectations. What's even more encouraging is that we've already begun to see successes from working with manufacturers on our growth strategies. Let me share a few examples with you. Rhino Food is a novelty ice cream ingredient manufacturer located in Burlington, Vermont. Rhino has been in business since 1981 and employs 130 people. However, because of their success with private label customers, Rhino had not created any new product offerings of their own and continued to live off the success of their cookie dough offerings. One of Rhino's private label customers changed their forecasting for order quantities, resulting in a sharp decline in future sales. Through a Eureka Winning Ways session, Patricia Juvara of the Vermont Manufacturing Extension Center helped Rhino identify a new product offering, Mix and Sip, which is a cookie dough topping that you can enjoy, I'm told, I haven't tried it, even through a straw. For those particularly interested, Mix and Sip does come in fudge brownie and cheesecake toppings. And I'm sure the Vermont folks can help you get connected with them. The second example is Metalcraft Mint, a private mint founded in 1948 that specialized in minted awards, gifts, and commemoratives. The company employs 94 people at its facility in Green Bay, Wisconsin. Metalcraft Mint's primary products were die-struck coins, medals, and medallions produced by a very labor-intensive process, and the plant was operating at only 50% capacity. The company needed to upgrade its production processes, invest in new technology, and grow its business in a highly competitive and diverse market dominated by Chinese manufacturers. The Wisconsin MEP took Metalcraft through a series of lean projects that improved processes and product flow. Following this, WMEP's Mike Quill took Metalcraft through the Eureka Winning Ways process to focus on business growth opportunities. As a result, Metalcraft now supplies a range of items, including plaques, awards, clothing items, and other recognition products. In addition, Metalcraft is the single source for the third consecutive presidential inaugural medallion. We've leveraged our Made in the USA label by investing in new technology that makes us competitive with the Chinese manufacturers, said Metalcraft President Jerry Moran. With our new manufacturing technology, we can turn around orders for lapel pins in 24 hours. We used to be a job shop. Now we mass produce similar products for a variety of customers in a wide range of markets. By the way, I checked out Melcraft's website and learned that the new technology was a proprietary process called CWIC, and they are keeping it proprietary because, as I was wondering, CWIC stands for Custom Wave Fast Images in Color. Finally, I'd like to introduce you to Rick Winkle, president of Can-Do Tape in Nashville, Tennessee. Can-Do is a manufacturer and distributor of adhesive tape products ranging from duct tape to highly specialized adhesives for automotive applications. As you'll hear from Rick, the lights dimmed in 2008 when the automotive crisis hit his 60-employee company, and how the services from the Tennessee Center for Industrial Services helped bring hope and growth back to his company. After developing a new idea for Eureka Winning Ways project, Rick and his team dove deep into a technology search through RTI's technology scouting process, and are now partnering with an R&D firm to develop and manufacture a patented product that opens up a new market in pressure adhesive tapes. Let's listen to Rick tell his story about how Can-Do got back on a path to profitable growth.
How it started is back in early of 2009, we were really looking for ways to grow our business. And the process that we went through, the Eureka Winning Ways and working with RTI, there's no way that we could have done it and gotten in contact with the people that MEP program put us in contact with. The one idea that we came up with was something new, entirely new for Can-Do. Went out into the marketplace and said, okay, who has this currently? And we found that we had a product that really fit a niche. It will be a patented product because it's not a technology that exists today. It would really put us into a different level and put us into some new markets that we've been looking at, mainly the medical market. Can-Do is not an R&D company. We really don't have any hopes of being an R&D company, but we want to ultimately fabricate part once it's in its completion stage. We came up with basically a list of must-haves for the product, and from that list they were able to put us in contact with some R&D firms. How to go about finding the funding, finding the R&D companies, doing research as far as helping us find existing technologies. I know now that it's something that we can do in the future and hope to do more of, because we were really, in our way to grow our business, trying to differentiate ourselves from our competitors, not just being a Me Too company. We don't want to be an R&D company because that's just not what we do, but bringing innovative ideas to our customers and just bringing something a little bit different to the table. And this would certainly do that for us.
I salute Albert Tisch and Keith Groves from the Tennessee Center for the work they did and continue to do for this company. As Rick stated in the video, he knows his company is prepared for the future thanks to the growth journey he's on with the Tennessee MEP Center and its partners. He never thought his company would innovate for the future, and thanks to MEP services, he doesn't have to wait for the automotive business to come back. I know what I'm asking is not easy. I realize we face many obstacles. Some believe the challenges we face today are more complex and interconnected than ever before, proving even more that the time to act is now. We don't have time to wait and allow the U.S. to fall behind. Our country is suffering from the impacts of a tough economic downturn and is just starting the process of recovery. We need to realize that U.S. manufacturing will never be the same as it was yesterday, or certainly not 30 years ago. U.S. manufacturing will be different, but I think it'll be better. MEP has been working over the past 21 years to lay the foundation for this change for the future of U.S. manufacturing. All of the projects, everything you've done to help your clients has contributed to helping U.S. manufacturers stay in the game. But we need to step up to the plate and raise our game once again. We need to add new services to ensure U.S. manufacturing excellence, rising to the challenges not only of today, but those that we will continue to face in the future. That is why we're here this week at the MEP National Conference, to challenge ourselves, to explore new topics, to increase our knowledge and skills, to rise to the challenge. As the great philosopher Yogi Berra said, it's like deja vu all over again. The competition we faced from Japan in the early 80s is not so different from what we are experiencing today. Only now we face competitions from all corners of the world. So if we were to reshoot the video that we saw previously, the title should be, If the Rest of the World Can, Why Can't We? The MEP program is not waiting until the economic storm is over. We're not waiting for the skies to clear. We all know what needs to be done based on our history, the MEP history, one of trying new approaches, learning from our successes and from our failures, and always looking to help our manufacturing clients be more profitable. Yes, MEP has seen and done all of that. All of you have put in the hours that have resulted in success with our manufacturers. Our clients tell us that in their testimonials. But as I said before, the road ahead will not be easy. There is no one-size-fits-all solution for recreating a strong, vibrant U.S. manufacturing base. There is no silver bullet, and the change will not occur overnight for U.S. manufacturers. So I ask you to consider and to reflect as you attend the various conference sessions. Think about transformation as the path forward for U.S. manufacturing. Look for new ways to reach manufacturers to meet them where they are, but also to help them plan for the future success. Think about new partners. Answer the questions. How can you work with others to leverage all resources to support your manufacturing clients? How can you bring not just your experience to these clients, but that of the entire MEP national system, the centers, and our extended network of partners? This is my challenge to you this week at the National Conference. I know you are up to the challenge. Thank you.
I enjoy that. I don't often get the music. Good morning, everybody. I can tell you were at the reception last night. Good morning, everybody. There, much better. So I was worried why no one was sitting up front, and then I realized we were all clustering near the coffee, so I understand. I've enjoyed being here. This is my first MEP National Conference. And I'm very impressed with this conference, and I've had some very enjoyable discussions. Roger, I want to thank you for the introduction. Thank you very much. That was very kind. This morning, what I'd like to do is share with you some thoughts about some of my favorite subjects. That would be innovation, manufacturing, and Nist. And before I do that, let me take a few seconds just to acknowledge this event and the many folks who are contributing to it. One thing, I'm very impressed with the agenda that you have for this conference, with Secretary Locke coming after lunch today. Yesterday you had Assistant Secretary Nicole Lamb-Hale, who's the Assistant Secretary for Manufacturing at the International Trade Administration. So that's an all-star cast, and I think that this role and this visibility of manufacturing within the Commerce Department is very real. And I want to point out it's due in no small measure to the leadership that Roger and Amy have played, so I want to acknowledge your key role in doing that. I would also like to acknowledge and thank all of you here for attending. Many of you have traveled across the country to come here, so I want to thank the MEP staff who are here, the Nist MEP staff, our federal, state, and local partners, who I will come back to, who play an absolutely essential role in the success of MEP, our colleagues from the commercial service, our many friends and industry stakeholders, not just from around the country, but indeed from around the world. It is the diversity and participation of MEP that makes it successful. And so I'm just delighted to be here. For me personally, it is very gratifying to lead a program at Nist that is credited by many inside and outside government as one of the best examples of a public-private partnership in collaboration to address manufacturing. MEP services are delivered to thousands of plants and factories and help underpin the performance of the world's largest manufacturing sector. So this morning, what I'd like to do is share a few thoughts with you about the theme for this year's National Conference, and that is writing a new story for manufacturing. The central thesis of this new story has got to be that a strong, vibrant, and growing U.S. manufacturing capability is absolutely critical to our national interest. I think there's going to be several important chapters to this story. First of all, manufacturing is a critical segment of the U.S. economy. In fact, I believe manufacturing is fueling our nascent recovery. During the first quarter of this year, manufacturing payroll grew by 45,000 jobs. The April Manufacturing Index from the Institute for Supply Management was at its highest level in 6 years at 59.6. The Federal Reserve is reporting that industrial production increased by an annual rate of nearly 8% in the first quarter, and several manufacturers, including Ford, Caterpillar, Whirlpool, Intel, Texas Instruments, are reporting impressive and in some cases eye-popping growth in revenues and profits. It is still very early, but these are very promising signs. However, as you all know, we're not there yet. Small businesses in particular seem to be lagging in this early recovery. One of the reasons is probably because exports, particularly to Asia, are fueling much of the growth in manufacturing, and small and medium-sized businesses account for less than a third of U.S. merchandise exports, and most of their trade is with our near neighbors, Canada and Mexico. Less than robust growth in domestic spending may account for the continued pessimism, but again, there are some early signs of improvement. So the forecast is a typical spring forecast. I think the winter is over, but uncertainty lies ahead. Uncertainty is a fact of life. I think all of you know that. It is a challenge, but it is also an enormous opportunity. The companies that survive downturns and are well positioned are the ones who position themselves for success as we come out. So this is an absolutely critical time. Another reason manufacturing is important is that it's key to our national interest. The ability to produce products and services in support of addressing key national priorities, think of energy or climate, to protect or defend our country, to improve the lives of Americans, health care, for example, has always been part of the manufacturing story, and I believe it's going to remain a very important chapter as we rewrite this story. But the topic I wanted to talk a little bit more about today is innovation. Manufacturing is critical because of its role in innovation, and this is an important area. This is an area that's receiving great attention recently, and it's also an area where there are many new ideas and a lot of old ones, too, that are coming back. We need to rewrite this chapter, and we need to give it a prominent position in our story because the ability to innovate new products and services is the key to our future economic prosperity, and it is also inextricably tied to manufacturing. Innovation is a driver for economic growth. A Commerce Department report released a few weeks ago estimated that technological innovation is responsible for approximately 3/4 of the nation's economic growth since World War II. Other countries are paying attention to data like that. In fact, both developed and developing countries are working to improve their innovation capabilities, and they are making rapid progress. A recent article from The Economist magazine summed up the situation like this: people who used to think of the emerging world as a source of cheap labor must now recognize it can be a source of disruptive innovation as well. So the field of our competitors is not only growing, they are in fact now more than 21,000 multinational firms based in developing nations. It is also getting much stronger and more capable. The stakes are huge. If the United States loses its innovation edge, its future prosperity is at grave risk. So why are manufacturing and innovation linked? I think there's several important reasons. First, innovation, particularly technology innovation, is about optimizing our ability to translate ideas and turn them into products. Innovation is about research, but it's also about production and all the things that happen in between. In fact, all the things that happen after production as well. Manufacturers understand this link, and in this country, over 70% of R&D investments made by the private sector are made by manufacturing companies. So manufacturers are major participants in this effort, particularly when you consider that private sector R&D spending far outstrips the public sector spending. Innovation opens up and develops new products. It provides the technology to enhance productivity and quality, and as a result is a key to sustaining our ability to compete and grow. There's another reason why manufacturing is so important. If the process of innovation doesn't include manufacturing, then it will not produce the type of economic punch that we need, particularly the ability to create new jobs. And the recent economic recession really brought this into stark relief. The reality is, conceived of in America is not the same thing as made in America. From a government perspective, the discussion of innovation is also very important. If innovation is about the translation of ideas into economic output, it becomes immediately the rationale for why a government, why we make such major public investments in research. It's the justification for our research spending. This economic role of research has received great attention in recent years as a result of many reports. The most prominent of these was a report called Rising Above the Gathering Storm. It has been the focus of bipartisan legislation in Congress. And for this administration, the approach has been summarized in a document that Roger pointed out this morning called Strategy for American Innovation, which was produced by the White House, Office of Science and Technology Policy, and the National Economic Council. And it was released by the President in an announcement last September. The innovation strategy is a core part of the Obama administration's pro-growth job-creating agenda. It recognizes that innovation is a key to global competitiveness, positioning American manufacturers for new and better jobs, a resilient economy, and for attaining essential national goals. The strategy is often depicted as a pyramid, and it has three major components. First, at the base, is the building block in ideas and workforce that we need, and that includes our investments in basic research, technology innovation, internet, cybersecurity. The second tier is about promoting competitiveness and fair markets, and that includes promoting entrepreneurship, promoting trade and export. And the third is the focus of applying technology to solving inherently government problems, addressing national needs, for example, by promoting alternative energy sources, promoting efficiency and effectiveness of healthcare, and through applications of information technology. And I'm going to come back and talk about one of these examples in just a moment. Nist, along with several other agencies, but especially the National Science Foundation and the U.S. Department of Energy's Office of Science, are key enablers of this strategy. In fact, the administration has slated 3 of the Nist programs, including MEP, for major budget increases over the next several years as part of this innovation agenda. This afternoon, you're going to hear from Commerce Secretary Gary Locke. He's going to talk to you about his aggressive, visionary strategy aimed at unleashing innovation and spurring job creation. And I think you'll be very interested to hear what he has to say. As I've heard from many of you yesterday and last night, the issues facing manufacturing are very broad, but the Commerce Department has a very broad set of resources itself. And so as you hear the Secretary talk about his agenda, which includes technology innovation, commercialization of research, patent reform, visa reform, reforming export control laws, the National Export Initiative, promoting entrepreneurship, and promoting manufacturing, I think you're going to see that he shares the great sense of urgency about this agenda, and I think you'll be very interested to hear of his vision for moving forward. I'm also pleased that my colleagues from the International Trade Administration, from the Commercial Service, have joined this conference for the Eurotrade Forum. This is a tangible example of this focus within the Commerce Department on manufacturing. So I hope you'll agree with me that this new chapter on manufacturing and innovation is going to be very important. It's likely going to impact how we work together. I think it's going to impact how we focus and develop our programs. It's an important chapter for Nist, and it's an important chapter for Nist not just because of MEP. And that's something that's not often understood, so I wanted to take a few minutes to talk about Nist and manufacturing. So Nist was founded in 1901. It was founded at the time, it was called the National Bureau of Standards, and it was born at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, actually in the heart of the peak of the Industrial Revolution and the beginning of the age of electricity. And for the last 109 years, Nist has really been focused on this interplay between technology, innovation, and manufacturing. As one of the nation's first science and technology agencies, in fact, it predates the formation of the Department of Commerce, the mission of Nist, or the Bureau, has been the same: to promote innovation and industrial competitiveness by advancing measurement science, standards, and technology. What has changed over time is the way Nist carries out its mission. And one of the pivotal moments for Nist occurred just after that video was done, approximately 25 years ago, when the National Bureau of Standards became Nist. And in fact, the laboratory program was augmented by 3 new programs. So today, Nist is a 4-program agency. And I'd like to give you a quick rundown of what those 4 programs are, and to point out that all 4 of them are in fact focused on manufacturing. In the context of the innovation framework we've been discussing, the Nist programs span the innovation spectrum, from basic measurement-focused research to promoting high-risk, high-payoff research to develop new technologies, to promote organizational excellence in industry, healthcare, education, and nonprofit organizations, and to support small and mid-sized manufacturers in the MEP program. So let me talk first about the Nist Laboratory program. So Nist laboratories are one of the oldest national laboratories in the federal government. Our mission remains now, as it was then, to develop the measurement standards and advanced tools needed by U.S. industry. What's different today is that instead of gauge blocks and artifact standards, the tools that industry needs range from precision laser tracking technology for shape measurements in a manufacturing environment to the atomic clocks that underpin our satellite and GPS systems. From phase diagrams for developing advanced alloys and materials to the very newest measurements needed to incorporate nanotechnology safely into products and devices. Nist works on computer security, communication protocols, and data exchange standards, and Nist work allows the interoperability of most of our modern information and communication industry. So while the work of Nist, the Nist labs, may appear like ivory tower research, and in fact, in many cases is at the cutting edge of science. In fact, some of our NIST scientists have been recognized with some of the most significant awards that scientists can receive in their career, including 3 Nobel Prize winners. The NIST research has always been operating at the interface of technology and industry, defining, measuring, and facilitating the movement of ideas, quantities, and materials in our economy, and serving to secure trust in the marketplace. I am simply the latest in a long line of NIST directors who will stand up here and tell you that if you can't measure it accurately, you can't manufacture it, at least not to the specifications of an increasingly demanding supply chain. I don't think anyone here will dispute that. The range of work performed by NIST is incredibly broad. I believe it's broader than any other U.S. science and technology organization. It spans work from quantum physics and cell biology and neutron science to forensic science, robotics, building safety, to work on our electronic voting and electronic medical records. In the face of all of that research and technical breadth, it's easy to forget that the NIST labs are there to support industry and manufacturers in particular, Our research activities, in fact, are supported by specific work in standards development, testing, calibrations, reference data materials, and a host of other services and interactions to bring the work of the NIST labs into manufacturing. Let me give you a quick example of how this would work. One area that is particularly active right now, where NIST is playing an important role, is the smart grid. So smart grid, as many of you probably know, is an effort to modernize the nation's aging electric power grid, considered by itself now one of the great engineering marvels of our time, and endow it with the capability to move data and electricity in both directions, not simply to deliver it from power plants to homes. This effort is a priority because this capability is needed if we are to install widespread renewable energy production, for example, solar panels on your house, or if we're going to affect consumer behavior to lower peak power demand so we don't have to build new power plants, or if we're going to promote energy efficiency in homes and businesses and move towards smart buildings. The federal government, led by the Department of Energy, is a partner with the private sector in modernizing the grid, and NIST has been given a key role. Congress gave us the role to coordinate, working with industry, the development of a framework of standards to achieve interoperability of all of the devices that would comprise the smart grid. We have engaged the private sector in this critical task. In less than a year, over 1,500 stakeholders, including representatives of more than 20 standard organizations, delivered an initial release of standards defining a framework for the smart grid. This document will be updated regularly and is a roadmap for the efforts covering thousands of different electric utilities and electric suppliers. This kind of standards work leverages the NIST laboratories because it includes the development of tests for calibrating smart grid sensing devices to evaluating whether the requirements, for example, in cybersecurity can be met. How will this affect manufacturing? Well, funding from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act has jump-started over 100 early deployment projects. Federal grants alone totaled more than $3.4 billion. The investment is attracting an additional $4.7 billion in matching funding, and all of this is being used to support manufacturing, purchasing, and installation of smart grid technologies. And this is just the beginning. Consider the forecast. The U.S. market for smart grid-related equipment, devices, information and communication technologies, and other hardware, software, and services will double between 2009 and 2014 to nearly $43 billion. Over the same time span, the global market is projected to grow to more than $171 billion, an increase of almost 150%. This rollout of the smart grid is going to take decades. Ultimately, it's going to require a technical foundation of hundreds or thousands of standards. These standards will allow hundreds, many hundreds, I believe, manufacturers to produce the thousands of components and systems that must all work with each other if the smart grid is going to do what it's supposed to do. And we believe that U.S. manufacturers will reap the maximum benefit if they are first movers in smart grid, if they help define what smart grid is. The NIST standards effort and the DOE funding opportunities have promoted that status, and ultimately smart grid will affect every economic sector, every household, and create new markets and new opportunities as it evolves. Let me talk about another one of the NIST programs, the Technology Innovation Program, or TIP. TIP is the youngest of the NIST programs. It was launched in 2008. TIP is a grants program, and it supports innovation through grants for high-risk, high-reward research in areas of critical national need. It is a competitive, merit-based program that awards a cost-shared grant to R&D projects by individual small or medium-sized businesses as well as to joint ventures. In December, TIP awarded funding to support 12 projects that aim to accelerate the incorporation of advanced materials into manufacturing processes. Topics included process-oriented projects like nanomaterials for lithium-ion batteries, optoelectronic inspection technologies, and methods for producing carbon nanotube inks for energy or flexible electronic and sensor applications. In mid-April, TIP launched a new competition. This round is designed to encourage innovation in manufacturing and biomanufacturing, with an emphasis on advanced materials and critical processes as well. About $25 million is available for first-year funding for up to 25 projects. Proposals are due July 15th. So if you have any ideas, please spread the word. It's all about manufacturing. Another Nist program that I'm sure you've heard about, in fact, the video was a good lead into that, is the Baldrige program. Nist manages the Baldrige National Quality Program. This was born out of the quality and productivity crises that beset industry in the 1980s. The program disseminates best practices to achieve organizational excellence. It's really an education program. And one of the ways it performs this is it recognizes the highest performing organizations at a national awards ceremony hosted by the President. Many manufacturers are among the hundreds of thousands of organizations in the U.S. and around the world who have used the program's criteria as a guide to achieving continuous improvement in their products and services, to enhance customer and employee satisfaction, and to achieve strategic results. Of those organizations, only a very small fraction actually submit an application to go through the rigorous review process to win a Baldrige Award. Since the program began, 26 U.S. companies have received the prestigious award in manufacturing, one of the 6 categories for the Baldrige recognition. More than 300 manufacturers have applied, not including those in the small business category. So again, an incredibly important program that continues to reinvent itself today and focus on the needs of today's industry and high-performance organizations. So I hope this gives you a quick sense of how Nist views manufacturing as central to its mission. It is, in the context of innovation, the central focus of my tenure as director of Nist. Put simply, the country simply cannot achieve sustainable economic growth without a robust capability to innovate and produce. Innovation depends on a strong industry involvement, and that involvement will be led by manufacturing. Our goals are linked. In the current economic environment, it is more important than ever for Nist to be effective and efficient in supporting innovation, in supporting industry, and promoting economic prosperity. This positioning of Nist, this central role that we will play, is one of the reasons I have focused as a manager of Nist on making sure that Nist can live up to that challenge. It's one of the reasons I initiated and announced a reorganization of Nist to make it more responsive to industrial needs. I've proposed eliminating our single deputy director and replacing it with 3 associate directors to focus on the major program elements of the agency. One of those directors will be the Associate Director for Innovation and Industry Services, very central to the needs of this organization and to manufacturers. And to ensure that our research programs at Nist keep up with the accelerating pace of discovery and innovation, the Nist laboratories are also on the threshold of a realignment to streamline how we carry out our mission. The changes will result in a vertically integrated structure so that a single laboratory is responsible not only for the basic and applied research that they did, but also for the services and the delivery and the interaction with industry that are so important to our mission. This will provide our manufacturing customers and other stakeholders with a direct line of sight into our activities and will help us identify opportunities and needs as they arise at this fertile boundary between science and technology. So I believe now more than ever the country needs Nist to carry out its mission. My job is to make sure we step up to the plate, and I hope these management changes and a spirit of purpose and accountability will help the agency step up to the challenges. This strong focus on innovation and manufacturing at Nist should also make it clear to you why MEP is such a special program and such a high priority for me and for the administration. This is a signature program for Nist. In many respects, it's one of the best known programs of Nist on the Congress and around the country, due in no small part to your own personal efforts. This program has continually reinvented itself in response to changing economic conditions and competitive challenges. Under trying circumstances at times, the MEP has been remarkably successful, delivering valuable services to manufacturers across the nation. This agile response to the needs of manufacturers is a hallmark of the MEP program. I think another key ingredient for MEP is its reliance on strong partnerships. In the process of innovation, only the two endpoints are really understood. At one end, we have basic research being conducted in the nation's science laboratories, largely federally funded. And at the other end, we have the production of goods and services by the private sector, owned by companies. In the middle, where most of the action occurs in innovation, I don't believe you can characterize it as anything other than mixing. It's an area where the magic happens when there's a diversity of participation between the private sector and the public sector, between researchers and manufacturers, between technologists and funders. And I think our future success, frankly, will depend on having mechanisms to bring these diverse participants together into effective, problem-focused partnerships. I think MEP has a leg up here. This is part of your approach. You've demonstrated that the right connections can make all the difference for a manufacturing establishment, its employees, and its customers. I saw this firsthand when I had the pleasure of visiting the New Mexico MEP Center last summer and toured 3 manufacturing firms that are prospering in the Sandia Science and Technology Park. They're making the most of their connections to the National Laboratory, to the MEP services, and these clients are building a competitive advantage using American-born technology. Speaking with many of you last night, I heard similar efforts in your own areas, and it's very exciting. These examples make it clear that we have an opportunity to write a new story, a better story for manufacturing in this country. So we must strive to produce it here. Manufacturing plays a critical role. It produces many of the high-quality jobs that this country needs, and it's completely entwined with the research efforts of this country. So in the spirit of an opening address to a conference, let me leave you with a few thoughts as you do all the hard work next and start your conference. First of all, I believe we are at the dawn of an age of manufacturing. I think there's a palpable excitement in the air. I think there's broad recognition of the essential role that manufacturing plays, not only in this country's future, but in our ability to innovate and secure future prosperity. This is very exciting. I think many of you will agree it's long overdue. But it is both exciting and a big challenge. So let's promise each other to keep our eyes focused on the goal of supporting U.S. manufacturing as we roll up our sleeves and work through many of the details of our programs and efforts. The stakes are simply too high to get distracted, and these opportunities do not come along very often. So another thought is I think we're all going to have to be innovators ourselves. I know that this focus on innovation and manufacturing is radically changing the way I will manage my own agency. I suspect it's going to change the way you run your centers or your business. I believe that MEP has thrived under adversity for 3 reasons. Because it is focused on the needs of manufacturers first. In fact, the MEP program we have today is not the one we set out to create 22 years ago, and I think that's a result of listening to manufacturers. I think it's because MEP centers have worked in effective partnership with others, including state participants, including the manufacturers, and working with federal partners. And I believe that MEP has focused on identifying and using real metrics to drive continuous improvement, to be self-critical, and to make the needed changes. My advice to you is this is a winning model. Keep it. The focus is shifting today from productivity and cost control to innovation and growth. Ironically, this harkens back to the original intention when we started MEP 22 years ago. The MEP program can play a key role, but this will be disruptive, and it may change the types of services you offer. It may change the way a program works. More than ever, we need the data-driven, agile approach of MEP to navigate these changes, and we will also need new and broader partnerships as we move forward. Another quick thought I have for you is that the problems facing U.S. manufacturing are much bigger than any one program like MEP or even one agency like Nist. I think that's one of the reasons it's so important to hear what Secretary Locke will have to say this afternoon. We have to be careful that we don't try to solve these large-scale problems by diluting existing programs that work. We're going to have to roll up our sleeves and tackle the broad range of programs and services that are needed to affect change and support U.S. manufacturing. Your leadership will be a key part of this process. Your voices are heard in Washington, and your insights into U.S. manufacturing are critically important. We will have to be able to work on several levels. On one hand, working on the problems of your programs and your centers and your clients. On the other hand, taking the broad view and looking at the underlying ecosystem that has to be in place for manufacturers to succeed. This is a really exciting time. MEP provides the bridge between the two ends of the innovation process, between research and production. Because of the dynamic and indispensable role that manufacturing plays in our economy, we need to make sure that U.S. manufacturers travel that bridge often. I wish you a productive conference. Thank you very much.